So once again, welcome to the Unshakable Foundation meeting of Cocaine Anonymous. This is a main share meeting, and today it's with great pleasure and much gratitude that we welcome Babe K, who's come to share for up to 40 minutes on the topic of humility, after which we'll open up the room for the Q&A portion of the meeting. And with that, Babe, it's over to you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Young. And hi, kids, I'm Babe, and I am an alcoholic. And I actually start with hi, kids. It's not me talking down to you. That's me acknowledging that we're just all God's kids. We're exactly the same. That's a little bit like humility, the name of this meeting, an unshakable foundation. I suggest the unshakable foundation is humility. Oh, just put the plug in the jug. Just quit using drugs. Just hang in there one miserable day at a time. Ha! I believe in joyful gratitude. I think humility is the most joyful, wonderful life we can possibly have. I don't have to sit around being like a little mouse, oh, I'm just so humble. The humility is what Bill says, a clear recognition of who and what we are, followed by a sincere attempt to become what we can be. And the reason I picked this, I don't like picking topics in advance because I don't know what's in my pointy little head from minute to minute. And I never, ever rehearse. So this is, I'm going to be as surprised as you where this goes. This is the only thing planned so far. And they put this in the 12 and 12 just recently. I've been reading this for over 20 years. Just on my sobriety day, March 2nd, 2002. So 22 years old, I ought to be an adult. Ha! But I found I'm just one of God's kids. Why would I want to be an adult? They're the people that are so serious. But this paragraph just jumped out at me a couple of weeks ago, and it's been bouncing around in my head. So here we go. Let's see what I think about it. But what the paragraph says, indeed, the attainment of greater humility is the foundation principle of each of AA's 12 steps. And I suggest CA's 12 steps as well, being that you use the same damn books. For without some degree of humility, nobody can stay sober at all. Nearly all AAs have found, too, that unless they develop much more of this precious quality than may be required just for sobriety, they still haven't much chance of becoming truly happy. Without it, they cannot live to much useful purpose or in adversity be able to summon the faith that can meet any emergency. So, and at least in the 12 and 12, and the part that jumped out at me, that this is the foundation principle of every one of our steps. And I hadn't thought of that. We hear people add all these extra principles to the steps, and what Bill says in the 12 and 12, AA's 12 steps are a set of spiritual principles, spiritual in their nature. So Bill said practice these principles means practice these steps. And then we add integrity, we add all these other things. And then Bill does too. He says humility is the foundation principle for every one of the steps. So that's what I thought I'd talk about. And thank God there's only 12 of them because I might remember them. I won't get to them all in 40 minutes, I almost guarantee. But, and we all come in here with humiliation, which it's humbling, but the shame and humiliation does not necessarily mean humility. I suggested, and I got here, you don't get the whole story. My wife came home from work March 2nd, 2002 with a big bandage on her arm. And I said, what happened to you? She says, you don't even know, do you? I said, no, why? She said, that's where you bit me. That was a humbling experience. It was more than humiliation. It was soul crushing. I was done. I can still see the look in her eyes. 22 years ago, and I could see that painful look because I never, ever thought I would hurt my wife. And that's when my whole world came crashing down. And, it may look like humility, but I suggest it was a kick in the open-mindedness department. I got to actually see myself for who and what I really am. This is the person that I thought so highly of myself, as Bill says, would hurt the woman that I loved more than anything. And that's humility, honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. If you're in acceptance is the key person, God bless you. But what is acceptance but honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness to look at a situation the way that it really is, not the way that I think it ought to be or the way that it is. Get out of the judgment business. So I'm absolutely crushed. Called the AA helpline, walked into Alcoholics Anonymous, and I did not find the fellowship that would love me till I could love myself. It was a whole room full of Eeyores. Just put the plug in the jug. Just don't drink no matter what. Which when we're brand new, that's all we got. I'm not denigrating that at all. That is the proper use of the will. Don't drink, white knuckle. But I suggest that can't be sustained. So this humility that I felt in step one, and it struck home. So when I got my big book at my second meeting, I read it 3 times between the second and third meeting. The book is the Book of Mirrors, even though the fellowship I ran into didn't mirror the book at all. In fact, I'm reading page 25. I'm thinking, didn't any of these people read this thing? They've been rocketed. They have deep, effective spiritual experiences that revolutionize their whole attitude toward God, toward the universe, toward all the kids on the playground. Whoa, they've been rocketed. The central fact of their life is the absolute certainty that their creator's entered their heart and lives in a way that's indeed miraculous. And what is that? Later in step 7 in the 12 and 12 bill says that this actively seeking God as a way of life is the pathway to humility and is the pathway to a wonderful life. And so, but in step 1, we're just hanging in there. My life is over. I'm reading on page 8. Page 8 changed my life. Bill says, well, first he says, I thought of my poor wife. I didn't know he was thinking of my poor wife. I was sure thinking of my poor wife. Bill was too. And there were good times after all, but that was over now. What he wouldn't give to have it back. And here's the humility lesson. No words can express that loneliness, despair, that bitter morass of self-pity. I like that we talk in metaphors because he came right out and said, no words can express this. That's the lowest we can possibly be. That's the most humble I can possibly be when no words can express this. So I could try to explain that pitiful, incomprehensible demoralization. If you've never experienced it, I could tell you, I could talk till next Tuesday and you wouldn't get it. And if you have, all I have to say is no words can express that loneliness and despair, that bitter morass of self-pity. And wow, yeah, me too. That's where the humility comes. Me too. I feel like that. And then where Bill changed my life, how dark it is before the dawn, that he was soon to be catapulted into what he calls the 4th dimension of existence, a life of usefulness and happiness. Ooh, keep happiness or keep usefulness in the little file cabinet, because I probably will get back to that. Where do we get the happiness? In being humbly useful. It's not the job, the car, or the girl. It sure ain't the money. It sure isn't good health. I'm old and beat up. My knees don't work. My prostate's old. Can't see for shit. I got a torn rotator cuff. Can't even play golf, the sport of last resort. And my life is amazing. It's more joyful than it's ever been. The more God takes away from me, the more God humbles me, the happier my life becomes. More joyful. Happiness, I may get to that. Happiness is circumstantial. Joy is what's in my heart all the time, right here, right now. And that's another good definition of humility, isn't it? So I'm humbled in step 1. Yeah, I'll admit it. Yeah, I'll accept it. Put any little tag you want to. But the humility, and then we get to step 2. And then my favorite promise in step 2, well, it's probably my favorite promise in the whole book, even though there's a whole lot of really, really good promises. But if our stories can clear the ground away and get Babe to set aside prejudice, Think honestly and search diligently in Babe's own heart. The consciousness of his belief is sure to come to him. What a great promise. And what is setting aside my prejudice? No more judgment, no more pride, no more conceit, no more contempt. Set aside my prejudice. Sounds like a definition of humility, huh? I get humbled. And why wouldn't I want to if the consciousness of my belief is sure to come to me? We all come in here thinking we got all kinds of beliefs. We're usually just full of shit or pride. What I think is going to make me happy has caused my devastation. So I set aside those old ideas. And then what does it say? You can join us on the broad highway. And it's a threefold promise there in one little paragraph. And the greatest promise in that one is, with this attitude, you cannot fail, babe. You are an egotistical little troll. If you can just set that aside and think honestly, see the world the way it is, see yourself the way it is. We start by looking at the world and its people. They are often quite wrong. But we're not there. We're not quite to step 4 yet. But we generally start looking at the world and not so much looking at ourselves. Because at this point, right after step 1, I am so crushed. I'm so humiliated. No words can express the loneliness and despair. I got a little bit of hope about this catapult thing. And I'm willing to look at the spiritual angle and the fundamental idea of God deep in the heart. That's where I'm going to find God. Quit looking out there for God. Look into your own heart. That's what search it diligently in your own heart. And it says it's only there God may be found. I have to get out of my own way. And what gets in my way? Pride leads the procession, then self-esteem, then pride and self-esteem combine to make me think it's ambition and relationships and money and property, prestige and romance. All the definitions of our modern society's success turn out to be the boogeymen, the thing that we cry, the rocks upon which our foundering vessel. How's that for poetic? It's not mine. But we crash into the rocks. That's what gets us here. And what brings us out of it is this humility, this willingness to set aside, a willingness to try something different. I didn't know what God was. I studied a whole lot of religions, but I'm not that guy nailed to the wall in the church. Get off the cross, babe. We need the wood. Get out of yourself. Set aside this. And later, it says the spiritual life is not a theory, but I suggest spiritual theories are immensely, and I see Young sends me messages every day. We do see where religious people are right, because if I'm trying to invent my own spiritual life, I got a fool running the show. What does this say? We try to seek this relationship with God. So I look at this. I love the red road. I love every single one of them, and I don't love any one more than another. But if you choose one and it works for you, that's in chapter 7. I'm nowhere near that yet. If that works for you, rock on. But still, set aside your prejudice. Yours might not be the only way. That's why in 22 years, my life has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger because I haven't quit seeking. I have just scratched the surface. I don't know where this is going to go. The Thomas Merton prayer, I don't know if I'm following your will, God, but I think my trying to please you does in fact please you. I have no idea where this road is going to go. I don't know where it's going to end. That's step 3. Quit playing God, babe. You're not the playwright. You're not the director. You're not even an actor. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in its petty pace from day to day. That was the actor that I did, poor Macbeth. Sad Zach Macbeth. Life is just a poor player struts and frets its hour upon the stage, then is heard no more. Life is a fool, signifying nothing. That's what I believed when I got here. And Bill actually says, that God is the director. But I suggest we actually think we're the playwright. The director of the play gets to read how the play ends. So we don't really want to just be the director. We want to write the whole damn play. And no wonder you don't know your lines, because I haven't even finished writing it yet. And that's step 3. That's setting aside prejudice. I don't know where this play is going to go. I don't know where this drama of life is going to be. I am totally helpless. Every single morning for over 20 years, I start with the 3rd step prayer, 7th step prayer, and then do a meditation, send out the text to like 100 people. But through the years, I've added right at the beginning, I start by saying, "Good morning, God. Here I am. Surprise me." That's my version of the set aside prayer every single day. Here I am, God, coming to you with empty hands. Everything I knew about you yesterday, let me set it aside so I get a new experience. That surprised me. It's a Richard Rohr thing. Love wholeheartedly. I may get to that. That is genuine humility, by the way, if we can love wholeheartedly. But, love wholeheartedly, be surprised. Surprise me, God. Show me the miracles. Just right here, right now, miracle after miracle after miracle. That's what my life has become. I'm just hanging in there. I get to sit here and see Young smile. How beautiful that. And Rachel's smiling. I get to see the face of God in every single one of God's kids. That's why I say, hi, kids. You guys are God. You guys are the face of it. My buddy, I'm sure I'll get to him. Father Dan Riley wrote a book called Franciscan Lectio. And this is where I figured I'd end, but I'm not just at step 3. But I went to he just died last Wednesday. Happiest guy in the world. And guy, I hadn't seen him in about 15 years. I'm at his book signing and I'm thinking, wow, he got old. What he thought, he looked up at me and his little Irish eyes just lit up. And talk about humble. It can sound like ego, but it was the most humbling thing I think I ever heard. He looked up at me and said, "Babe, God's light is shining in you." And oh my God, that's humility. We get to be the face of God to people, reach out and change somebody's life. So every day, I'm saying the 3rd step prayer, build with me and do with me as you will. I like to break into 2 halves of the sentence. God, I offer myself to you. Why? Well, because my sponsor says I got to if I want to take step 3. No, so God can build with me and do with me as he will. What do I pray for? I often meditate on that. What is God building me? God making in me an instrument of your peace. How do I do that? I'm praying to be made into this channel instrument of God's peace. How do I do that? What's my responsibility? And that's God doing the matrix. Bring it. Bring hope, joy, light, love, compassion, understanding, outgoing love. Where there's faith, the whole prayer of St. Francis becomes our job description. To fit ourselves to be a maximum service to God and our fellows. What a better description than that prayer of St. Francis. Love and tolerance and kindliness is our code. That's what the spiritual life looks like. If I can be the little light in somebody's life, then I can bring a little hope where somebody's in despair, where I can show some comfort when someone is hurt, where I can actually show some understanding. Ooh, I don't judge you. I don't condemn you. Can I comfort you and understand you? Can I walk a mile in your moccasins, to quote the Red Road? Can I do this with God? Yes. Can I do this on my own? There ain't a snowball's chance in hell. Because I'm going to fall into pride. I'm going to fall into judgment. I'm going to fall into condemnation. All the opposite sides of the bring it. I will fall into despair. But when I'm trusting and relying on God and trying to get out in the world, to relieve me of the bondage of self, that's back to step 1. No words can express that loneliness and despair. That's the bondage of self, by the way. But when it's humbly removed, I can better do God's will. What's God's will? See sentence 1. Make me a channel of peace. Help me be the person that I can be. What can I pack into the stream of life? And then take away my difficulties. Why do I want my difficulties taken away? Well, who doesn't? No, so I can come on here and say the fact that God has taken away my difficulties is this unshakable foundation of my life. How can I go through the pain and suffering of life and still know joy? Because I live in humility. So, and the third step promise is less interested in our little plans and designs. What can I pack into the stream of life? We don't get them in step 3. They're just promises for when our humility actually grows. So we're taking step 4, and I'm looking at that, and God, this person is sick just like me. That's more unification. That's more humility. You and I are exactly the same. We're just God's kids. And I already said it, the world and its people are often quite wrong. That's when I'm living in pride. And then we do that whole resentment thing. And what do we look for? Pride, self-esteem, ambition, money, power. Well, what part of me is hurt, threatened, or interfered with? Well, all of it when I'm playing God. What part of me is not hurt, threatened, or interfered with when I'm trusting and relying on God? None of it. I get to just show up, suit up. Here I am, God, surprise me. With my fears, I make poor responses. Look at what part of self are you relying on to try to get yourself through the fear? That's a difficult exercise. It always comes down to pride. Fear of the unknown, the need to know, the need to be right, fear of pain, fear of death. I'm afraid of spiders. Are you, or are you afraid that it might be poisonous and you're going to die? Oh, you're afraid of death, but I may not die. Oh, so I'm afraid of sickness and pain. Or what if the thing isn't even poisonous? I'm scared to death of the unknown. In humility, I welcome the unknown. I welcome being surprised. I welcome, show me what's next, God. Here we go. This is a brand new way of life that I'm just starting out on. I've been doing it a little longer than some of you, but I'm just getting started. Every day is a brand spanking new day. Step 5, the most spiritual of all the steps, because it is, I believe, the most humbling. You might think step 9, and it's a close second. But to my way of thinking, step 5 is probably the most spiritual, where you and I sit down and rip off the mask, both sponsor and sponsee. When I'm telling my 5th step to someone, and I've ripped off the mask, it starts out with humiliation, it says, but then the years of dammed up emotions fall away, and we're replaced with serenity. And we get to feel the presence of God. Me, you, and God. My sponsee, Monica, a lot of you know her. She came up with the concept of a God blanket. Me and you wrapped in the God blanket. And we're both just God's kids, totally open, totally honest. And what is that but humility? I can't say anything that you can't say anything to hurt me when I'm being totally humble. And that is the most beautiful thing. At the end of a 5th step, I hope you ended up. I mean, if your sponsors want somebody that comes with a clipboard and listens to your list, your index of maladjustments, and says, well, you left out this one, and you come out with more character defects after step 5 than you went in with. I suggest you miss you can look the world in the eye. You're walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. You're delighted. You're probably crushed, maybe a little humiliated, maybe a little more humility. And it doesn't have to be a terrible thing. But the spiritual part, my Franciscan buddy, Father Dan died in Brother Kevin's car, went to put on his seatbelt, stiffened up, and died. It was unexpected. And he and I were both laughing and crying when we were talking about that. How can you laugh and cry? Somebody died. Yeah, but we got to know this beautiful human being. This whole Franciscan Lectio, brother, sun, sister, moon. And, Lectio Divina is how we read the word, and people say it's reading the Bible, which it is to that particular religion. But Francis and Clare saw the word before there was a written word. The petroglyphs on the cave wall, the worship of the sun, brother sun, sister moon, all nature, all God's creatures. The meadowlark doesn't weave or sow. I can't quote St. Francis because I am not a saint. It says so right in our book. We are not saints. But to see the world as a playground, to see the world as a field where we get to open up. Merton talks about the little yellow flower beside the road that nobody notices. That little yellow flower in its own way is singing its praise to God. We get to be like the little yellow flower in humility. We're not trying to convince anybody. We're sure as hell not trying to impress anybody. We're just saying, thank you, God. Here I am. Surprise me. Well, it's kind of sad. My maple tree that gives me beautiful shade, or my spruce tree, like 80 feet tall, reaching up to heavens. They're both giving their praise to God, but they don't know. They're just doing it. They're doing spruce things and maple things. Humans are blessed and cursed with the idea that we can say, why are we even here? What's the point? We can look at our motives. So somebody just ate all my kale. I saw a little hole. I don't know if it's a rabbit or a woodchuck, but I went out to pick some kale for dinner tonight, and all I got is kale stems. So I'm saying, well, Brother Rabbit, I hope you enjoyed it. I didn't say, Brother Rabbit, I hope it gives you diarrhea. I planted that kale just for that rabbit or that woodchuck. I'll probably not waste away to nothing without kale. And I get to say, bless you, brother, whatever, brother critter, because I don't even know who it is. So this humility that we don't know, that we just are here in the world to play the role God assigns. Gee, they ought to put that in the book. They did, didn't they? We get to ask, what do you want me to do today, God? What do you want me to be to do, God? The contract we make in step 3 is the epitome of humility. Turn my will and my life, my will, my thinking, and my life, my actions over not to God, to the care of God. Show me, God, show me, God, show me. How many times in the book does it say, show me, I'm lost, I'm frightened, show me, God? What's that going coming to God empty-handed? I'm scared, buddy. I'm sad today, buddy. My heart's broken today, buddy. Show me the way out of it. And God says, get off your butt and go help another alcoholic. How do we go through the certain trials and low spots? Enlarge our spiritual life, not hiding in a closet chanting Om Mani Padme Om for 22 hours. It's praying, God, show me the way out. Show me what you want me to do. Show me what you want me to be. Through work and self-sacrifice for others. What is self-sacrifice? And the 12th tradition. We of Alcoholics Anonymous believe that anonymity is of immense spiritual significance. Anonymity in the sense of the 12th tradition is no distinction. Just be the little yellow flower. Just be who God intended you to be. That's the anonymity that we get to sacrifice ourselves for. So we believe anonymity is of immense spiritual significance that we are to practice. So humility is something I can actually practice, that we can practice a genuine humility. Why? This to the end that our great blessings may never spoil us, that we shall forever live in thankful contemplation of him who presides over us all. We get to be the spruce tree. We get to be the maple tree. We get to give shade. We get to give hope. We actually know what our purpose is. The spruce tree and the maple tree don't. And that's humility. I can't do this on my own. Step 6, cooperating with God, aiming toward perfection, which is of God. I suggest the prayer of St. Francis is a very good definition of what perfection is. What can I bring to the world? Especially love, genuine humility. is the absolute. I've come to this conclusion. It's probably bullshit, but it's still my conclusion. But we can conceive of absolute humility. And what I believe absolute humility is when there is no more others. We are one. That's not a me and you. This whole program is altruistic. Turn our thoughts to helping others, turn our thoughts to other people, me and you walking hand in hand within the spirit. So there is always others, and it's a beautiful life. But I think real absolute humility would be when there are no more others. You and me becomes we. And we get glimpses of that. We get glimpses of that unity. And we try even harder to be more useful, more loving, more patient, more understanding, more comforting. And then our humility grows. Step 7, I'm not even going to go into it. That's all step 7 is in the 12 and 12. But in the big book, it's simple. And I don't know why he says you have just completed step 7, because I would suggest we just started it. But my creator, not your creator, not the creator, my creator, my own creator. I'm now willing that you have all of me, good and bad. Take away my judgment, take away my resentment, take away my contempt prior to investigation, take away my pride, take away my ambitions. So, then please remove from me every single defect of character that stands in the way of my happiness. Nope. Of my usefulness to you and my fellows. How many times does it tell us, in step 9, our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be a maximum service to God and our fellows? Way at the beginning of the book, our very lives as ex-problem drinkers depend on our constant thought of others and how we may meet their need. So I'm still going to talk about others because I am still human, and I see that I have an ego because I'm human, and I can see others, you, as distinctly different than me, but I see the ways of our similarity and humility. And so the absolute, there are no others. It is we of Alcoholics Anonymous, we of Cocaine Anonymous, we, all the way home, little piggy. No, that isn't what they mean. My brain goes in screwy directions. So step 7's humility is where grant me strength as I go out from here, because I can still be very closed-minded. With the first little anonymity or little humility is the contempt prior to investigation. That's how my pride turns up, is contempt, is being judgmental, saying this is good, this is bad. You've all heard the story. I don't know what's good. I don't know what's bad. When we got into these rooms, we think we know what's good and bad. And heck, I think the original slogan is, it seemed like a good idea at the time. I don't know what's good. I don't know what's a bad idea. My wife was in intensive care years ago, and I'm praying that, God, our life is so good now. She's such a beautiful woman. I love her so much. Please let her live. God went out and started making universes or something. He didn't say nothing to me. And so I'm thinking, well, slow down, God. And so I sat there in the ICU, listening to her on the ventilator all day long. Went home, did my nightly review, couldn't step on the toes of many people sitting in the ICU. Next day, I got up and said my 3rd step prayer, did my whole routine, went to the ICU, and I'm saying, God, she's been on this ventilator for 4 days. If she's going to be a vegetable, if she's going to be suffering, please take her home with you. Once again, God's out doing universes, doing God-y kind of things. God didn't say a friggin' word to me. And I like to say, on the 3rd day, Babe rose again. And I said my prayer, and I found this beautiful little prayer. There's more to it, but this is the part that I remember, and it's the part that I can actually say like a mantra when the shit's hitting the fan. But it's God's love enfolds me. Think about love enfolding me. Think about Monica's God blanket, that feeling we had in the 5th step. God's love enfolds me. His light surrounds me. I get to feel God's light surrounding me. And then God's power protects me. And then wherever I am, God is. That's when I learned how to pray rightly without putting my ego into it. Praying out of humility. God, just be with me. I know you're here. I feel your love. I feel your power. I see your light. I don't really see the light, by the way. And I don't really hear voices. I am not schizophrenic. Well, I might be. Who knows? What you know? But you know, that prayer, I felt the presence of God. And my dear friend is going through a really sad time right now. And she's saying that like that, knowing that God's here. Where is God? When is God? I don't have to go to church or a synagogue or an ashram. I don't even have to go sit in the woods. God's right here, right now. His love enfolds me. His light surrounds me. His power protects me wherever I am. God is. And what's really cool, you guys are there too, whether you like it or not. Ha ha ha. And this is how I live this humble life. Step 8, what does it say? This is the beginning of the end of isolation, this willingness to, how did I hurt you? Spiritually, emotionally, mentally. Geez, I just want to buy you false teeth because I punched you in the face and I broke your teeth. My poor wife, I asked her years down the road, what's the worst thing I ever did to you? She said, you'd make me feel small and stupid and insignificant. I crushed the woman's spirit. That wasn't even on my 8-step list. Never crossed my mind. And practicing this love and tolerance, the humility that we learn in here, I said, dear, how can I ever make that right? I can see that look on her face too. She said, you already have. There's a long period of reconstruction. They want us a demonstration. A demonstration of what? Patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love. And what is that? That's a beautiful definition of humility. It's not about me. The 9-step promises are not participation trophies. You know, it tells us once that we're willing to go to any length to get over drinking because we haven't gone out and done any of them. 2 pages later is when they say, but our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be a maximum service to God and our fellows. Oh, that's a big deal. I get to, and so this new freedom, this new happiness, I suggest is living this humble life, living this life that I'm no longer running the show. That's the freedom. I get to just float through life, exuding hope and joy and light, which I kind of do. But it's not a plan. It's what we learn to become. What would you have me be, God? Show me, help me practice this, help me get out of myself. Why do we take step 10? Because I can go right back in there in a heartbeat. And what's the first thing I do? Watch for this crap. I throw in the 7 deadly sins too. But when they crop up, it turns out that I'm not running around with this little inventory. I'm not, not a 4-column resentment inventory, expanded 2-column fear inventory, 9 relationships questions in my head in step 10, but I kind of am. Because when I feel selfish self-centeredness, I can. And what's the first thing we're supposed to do? Ask God. Oh, I thought I was supposed to call my sponsor. No, I'm supposed to talk to God. Take this away from me. And then talk to someone. Then make amends if I went a little over the line. And what do we then do? Turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Get out of yourself. Enlarge your spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others. Quit worrying about the guy that cut you off in the intersection. I'm still guilty if I get cut off or I assert myself because I was here first. I'll go through the intersection extra slowly because I was right. Say, I am not a saint. But I can learn to say this person is all right. The idea, the little old guy in the grocery store line that's got 10 items in the 8-item checkout. There's many ways we can do it. We can just huff and puff and say, can't you read, you old geezer? I'm the old geezer, by the way. Can't you read, you old geezer? Or you can just do the huffing and rolling your eye meditation. Or you can be a little more spiritual and think, gee, the poor old guy, I can forgive him for having 10 items in the checkout line. And I heard recently the most spiritual way to handle that: quit counting. Don't worry about how many items the old geezer's got. Quit counting, quit judging. Oh, geez, I haven't even I got to end with Kate's dying through 15 months of her cancer. We never asked for a prognosis, so we put it in God's hand, because I told you how it was how I learned to pray rightly. Every single day for that 15 months, we laughed. And she died right here where I'm sitting. I would do my little morning meditation thing and surprise me, God. I'd wake up, Kate would wake up, and every single day I'd say, "Morning, sunshine, got a smile for me?" Every single day, including the day she died, we laughed about something. It was the most loving spiritual experience to spend the last 15 months, to watch the love of my life waste away, watch her mind go, watch her body go, watch to the point that, I'm picking her up. I'd put her on my shoulder and carry her upstairs until she spun out and peed on my head. That was a riot. I gave up my couch. My whole job in life was to make sure nobody ever stole the couch, and I trusted it over to her. But in that dark period, needless to say, it was a dark, dark night of my soul. But in meditation, God took me into his world and said, "Babe, in my world, somebody's saying, this is the best day of my life. I fell in love. We're having a baby." And from that moment on, this was 7 years or so ago. I'm not good with clocks and calendars, as you can tell by the timer. but from that moment on, I realized I don't have bad days. I only have selfish days. There are no bad days. And how many times do you hear people, "I'm just having a bad day"? No, you're not. You're having a selfish day. What's grief but my selfishness? I rejoice in having that woman in my life that got me to Alcoholics Anonymous because I bit her arm. What a beautiful way to live humbly. So that's enough out of me.
Hi, my name's Kate. I'm an addict. I'm just wondering, I'm struggling at the moment in early recovery, how to set personal boundaries with people, because of course I'm still in treatment, with people with humility and not sounding like an absolute idiot.
I believe the question was boundaries. I'm still learning how to speak English. I speak American. I'm a terrible person to ask about boundaries. I think the walls I build around my heart to keep out the pain also kept out the joy. I open my heart and let all God's kids in. I don't have to do anything stupid or selfish, but to be open to every one of God's kids, that's kind of the point of step 9. And I ended up in marriage counseling a few years into it because she said, "You don't have any boundaries." And I said, "You're right, I don't." So I think boundaries are kind of natural, but I don't have to come up with a list of them. So you're asking the wrong guy about boundaries.
Thank you so much for your question. Andy, would you like to come in, please?
Hi everyone. Hi Babe. Great share. I just got a question about humility and ego, because when I'm at home, I'm quite chilled and relaxed. But when I'm at work, it's quite a stressy environment, and my ego and humility go out the window a little bit. I try and control it as best I can, but sometimes I find it really hard. I don't know if you've got any help on that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, actually, this is a lifelong process. It tells us that. That's why we get step 10. When these things crop up, what do I do about it? Do I actually learn to pray? Do I actually learn to forgive? Do I actually then turn my thoughts to someone I can help? And it seems like forever to get there. But if we practice this discipline, carry the vision of God's will for me constantly, it says, Well, it ain't so constant, at least for the first 22 years, maybe later. But these crop up and I get to learn my lesson. And the next time I practice the discipline a little more, and the next time it gets a little better. So yeah, if they didn't crop up all the time, we wouldn't need step 10.
Thanks for your question, Andy. And next up, we have Gemma. Good to see you, Gemma. Would you like to come in with your question, please?
Thank you, Isaac. Yeah, Gemma Addict. Thank you, baby Shell. I've heard you a few times. I want to know how you keep your passion and your drive for this program after all these years of being around the program. Did you like rocketed into the 8th dimension and not the 4th dimension? So I want to know how you keep your passion and drive for the program. Thank you.
And that is, Bill talks about, the only page number I know in is Bill sees it, that a full and thankful heart, there's no room for conceit. That we experience outgoing love, the finest of human emotions. That's why I said, I'm just getting started. I have no idea where this is going to go. Maybe there is an 8th dimension. I don't know. Surprise me, God. How can I was asked at another thing I did that was a Q&A. And they said, what do you do when it gets all great? Have you ever wanted to quit? I said, I don't know. I never did. This just gets bigger and bigger and bigger as time passes. And that's what we're promised in here if I practice the discipline.
Thank you for your question, Gemma. And next up, we have Josie. Josie, would you like to come in, please?
Hi, babe. That was great, actually. My question is, I'm kind of struggled with not that with God, but the discipline of praying prayers. I'm just wondering if it came natural because I loved what you said about surprise me today. I like that one. Like when you wake up, God, surprise me today. Let me be, you know what I mean? That resonated with me. So I jotted that down. But the structure of praying, like I talk to God, my higher power, just like a conversation, in my head, right? But not the actual structure of prayer. And I know I hear that, does it get easier over time? Like, I hope I'm making a little bit of sense right now, but starting it out and then just practicing it. And then it becomes muscle memory and then it just flows, ebbs and flows. Does that make sense? And I'm going to just leave it there. Thank you.
Of course it does. And some people depend on the ritual. But I had a sponsee, babe, do you think there's such thing as wordless prayer? I said, yeah, they're the best kind. So yeah, that little prayer that I said, God's love enfolds me, his light surrounds me, his power protects me wherever I am, God is. That's not too hard to remember. I'm not a big ritual guy, although I believe fully in the discipline. But yeah, if you like the ritual, and I remembered the 3rd step prayer because I've been saying it for 20 years. So there is some use to the ritual, but it's more the feeling behind it than the ritual itself.
Great question. Thanks, Josie. Next, we have Rach. Rach, would you like to come in?
Thanks, Isaac. Thanks for your service. Hi, everyone. I'm Rach. I'm a grateful recovered addict. Thank you so much, babe. I love the energy. I really love the passion and the energy and the humor and the lightness. You spoke a lot about like embracing change, and it sounds like you're not scared. You don't get afraid. Can you remember how and when that came in, and when you have had periods of fear, that like what have you done in your program for that, to overcome fear and embrace change?
That's actually, it goes to Andy's question. And the book even says, I don't know what day or time this happened. And, it's like watching glaciers move. But we look back, that was almost going to be my topic, is suddenly. But suddenly might take 20 years. And then I look back and holy cow, I'm facing the life unafraid. When did that happen? I don't know. Keep doing it. And you'll look back and say, I'm not so afraid anymore. And I can tell you, it's not a one and done. It's not, I'm afraid to leave the house one day and now I can go conquer the world the next day. It takes a lifetime. And that's what we're promised. And that's the joy of it, by the way. Patient improvement. progress toward perfection, not progress, not perfection, progress toward the perfection of true love, true compassion, true giving, true selflessness. And the more we practice it, it becomes a routine that never gets old. So the answer to the question is, I don't know.
Thank you so much for your question, Rach. Next, we have Sue. Sue, would you like to come in with your question, please?
Yeah. Hi, babe. Thank you so much for that share. It was absolutely so full of passion and also humility. You touched on something that I have recently had myself, was that I married my husband on the 15th of March this year, and he died on the 9th of April. And I sat like you, but I sat in a hospice and saw him go from a strong, muscular man to less than 60 kilos, 55 kilos. And I sat there when he died. What tools do you have to get you through that? Because you had your voices didn't break once, and mine breaks all the time. So where do you get your strength for that?
Well, the short answer is God. But afterwards, and your voice should break. Crying is necessary. You know, I was married to her for 46 years. And then to be gone, and the kids are grown, and the grandkids are growing and gone. And I'm knocking around in this house all by myself, and I was overcome, literally ached with loneliness, because I had never been without somebody in my life right here with me, right here, right now. So I did ache with loneliness. And that meditation where the grief is what's dragging me down. But when God said in God's world, somebody's saying it's the best day of their life. And that was profound in realizing that it's just my selfishness. Doesn't take away the pain. But I realized the truth that I'm just being selfish. And what does it say to do? Right after that, I went to a 4th and 5th step workshop, talked to my Franciscan buddy about how is it that I literally ache. I don't know what's going to happen to my life. And I went to a 12 and 12 meeting, and they were in step 12, and it says the new guy's on the verge of new joys, new mysteries, new adventures. And then the world shut down, and then I found Zoom and hundreds of God's kids. I'm over there in the UK trying to learn how to speak English. What in order? I can't go through with it. When I turn myself toward God's kids, there isn't enough room for the ache in my heart.
Thank you for your question, Sue. And last but definitely not least, we have Bao. Bao, would you like to come in, please?
Yes, thank you, Isaac. And thank you, very wonderful share. So I heard the word God. My question is, does your God have a name, or do you just use the word God?
I started out calling it something. And even my Franciscan friends, C.S. Lewis says, if I don't believe in his particular deity, I'm a pantheistic fool. And I was telling my Franciscan friends, I don't know why these Franciscans all like me. I don't consider myself a Christian. I don't consider myself anything. But what Brother Kevin told me is, babe, you are a panentheist. A panentheist is someone who sees a little bit of sliver of God. Everything is just a little sliver of God. So all of Christianity is just the least little sliver of God. All of Islam, all of us, all of whatever, all of everything is just a micro atom of what this. God is just easy to say. God is everything. Call him everything. Call him Clifford. God doesn't really care. He answers to anything. I don't think he's a he. I don't think he's a she. I don't think he's a no thing. So God is no thing too. God is everything and God is no thing. We can be Zen, we can be anything. Call it, hey, you, or something. Something worked for me for a while.
Thank you so much for your question, Bao, and thank you, Babe, for taking the time to answer in the Q&A. This now brings us to almost 9 p.m. UK time, which brings us to the end of question time, but not quite the end of the meeting.